Part 2.
Erev Tov, everyone. Live from Efrat again. Learning the Zera Shimshon. Zrat Hashem, all the tefillot, all the brachot that the Zera Shimshon promised. We should all see them, and everyone who needs a refuah and Yeshua should be answered quickly.
Don't forget we have the shorts.
Say the name of the
Zrat Hashem, Moshe, refuah shlema for Moshe ben Yehudit Sarah, and many other all the other cholim who need their refuah.
Amen.
And other Yeshuot as well.
Amen.
So he says, so the Zera Shimshon mentioned in the Torah Hey, Rush Hey. So it says in this week's Parshat, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Lamed Dalet, that Moshe is now starting to talk about, in the middle of his talk about the Chet HaMiraglim. Of course, he doesn't necessarily, he changes some of the words that he talks about from the original time that we talked about Chet HaMiraglim in Sefer Bamidbar. So Moshe says, it says, Vayishma Hashem et kol divrechem vayikitzof. The whole pasuk reads, Vayishma Hashem et kol divrechem vayikitzof vayishava limor. So the translation is, Hashem heard the sound of your words, and Hashem was upset, and he says that any person, this entire generation, I'm not giving, whoever I give to your, it says here, meaning he's saying is that none of this generation will enter into the land that I promised to the Avot. So the question, the Zera Shimshon asks a very simple question. What should the pasuk have said? It says, "Vayishma Hashem kol divrechem." What should it say? What word is extra? Kol. Exactly. I don't need to hear the voice of what you said. I could have just said, "Vayishma Hashem divrechem." Right? You don't need to say that. Of course, you could. Obviously, we know that sometimes a word is used to emphasize something, but here, kol divrechem is not emphasizing because the voice that you said, right? Of course, it means the voice that you said. What other thing do you say? Right? It's obvious. So he says here, Kasher lama lo amar vayishma Hashem divrechem demau kol. What is this word kol? So he says, Matzanu ze lashon beParshat ve'etchanan shtei pamim bepasuk echad vayishma Hashem et kol divrechem b'davarchem elai shamati et kol divrei ha'am hazeh u'shtei pamim be'Iyov and Yov also v'kol mila neshma ha'azini l'kol mili v'tzarich tam ma'u tivat kol. So the Zera Shimshon is bothered by the word kol, and he says, I'm going to find you two other places where the word kol is used, and he mentions Parshat ve'etchanan, and it says kol devarim atem shomim. Sorry. He mentions here two of them. He says Shemati kol divrei ha'am, and he says v'kol divreichem b'davarchem elai, and also he mentions Iyov, and there twice. Once in Perek Lamed Dalet, one pasuk Lamed Dalet, and one in.
Guess he knew the whole.
Right, exactly. So there's also one of those things that I forgot who I was, where I heard that says there's like, I think last week I mentioned that there are some rabbanim. One second, we have a Skype call.
Charles forgot his
Is that
phone.
you?
Oh crap. Still me. Sorry.
It's okay. Anyway, so basically, the Zera Shimshon is fascinated by the word kol and why it's used in different places, and every one of them, obviously, and every time it's always mentioned with kol divreichem, meaning the word devarim, the word that you say, always the word kol comes, kind of seems to go before it. The Zera Shimshon seems to be bothered by that word kol. What is going on here? So he says here, what we do in order to explain it, he says that the first expression Vatchanan, which mentions the word kol twice, and he says there, regarding the Parshat Vatchanan, it says, the Parshat Vatchanan, it says the sound of words, it's not, there we have no question. Because there, Hashem was talking about how, it was talking about the speech of Hashem, and therefore, when he delivered the Seret HaDibrot, and therefore, and then he says, "V'amrina b'midrash Shirim Rabbah, shadibur shaya yotzei mipei HaKadosh Baruch Hu holech v'chozer al kol echad b'Yisrael v'omer lo mekableni ateh olecha v'odibur elyon shani dichtiv bei." So he says ועל זה הדרך יצורה פסוק של דניאל והשמע את כל דבריו. ששם היה מלאך מדבר, אבל כשישראל הם מדברים קשה. So he says is, we have to understand, and we have to the difference. We have to make a distinction between the kol when Hashem is talking, and when the kol that when Bnei Israel are talking. So what does he say? He says, look at Parshat Vayetchanan. Parshat Vayetchanan, when the word kol is used twice, one of the times, based on what Zera Shimshon Rabbah says, he says is that when Hashem spoke the words to give the aseret that he brought, it says that the word would repeat ki'ilu kivyachol. The words Hashem said would literally go from person to person to person to person, right? And
ask him.
And said, "Mekableni ata alecha." You have to accept it, right? Va'odi bur elyon shani. It says also the words of Hashem.
Ask him, do you accept it?
Right. I don't know.
Kablani ata alecha.
Hold on a second. Yes, do you accept it? Right. Meaning that the sound of the words themselves spoke. In other words, Hashem. Basically, the words that were said by Hashem, Ki'ilu went person to person, and therefore each person heard the saying is, "Do you accept it? Do you accept it? Do you accept it?" And therefore, the kol is there. It's different. Hashem's words, when it says, and also you look later in Shmot, what does it say? The Chol Am Ro'im et HaKolot. They see it, right? And therefore, we can understand that basically there he says that Ki'ilu HaMalach was talking. But either way, the words of Hashem, when Hashem is talking, we can't ask that question. We can't ask the question about kol in Parshat Vayetchanan. But we still have the question of Iyov. Iyov mentions the word kol twice also. So he's basically saying is that he makes the Zera Shimshon, which is, again, it shows a unique understanding and a keen understanding of not only Nistar, which we can sort of see in many times. He mentions the Zohar, he mentions all these Mekubalim, but here he mentions Psukim, and he understands the nuances of Psukim to say that the kol of Hashem that was mentioned here and here, he understands it one way. In other words, sometimes you have Rabbanim who are known to be Rabbanim of, let's say, Halacha. And they really know their Halacha. But when they start looking into Megilat or Nistar or things like that, they're not so known. Then you have another Rav who's known for Nistar or known for like whatever. But here you see the Zera Shimshon is just understanding even Psukim himself. He really understands the Psukim and also Midrashim.
I don't understand why it's a kasha to call the Rechem of a human.
Because kol, you don't need to say
You do, because I could break letters without any sound coming out. So kol means that there was a sound coming out.
So he's going to take it. I can hear what you're saying, but I can even say, but even if I say Devarim, right? What does the pasuk say? Vayishma Hashem et divreichem. Hashem hears the words that you said.
The Shema kind of covers
the Shema and the Devarim covers both words, but both. I hear what you're saying. I don't have to hear. I hear the words that the voice
Why
that
are you
you're
adding
saying.
the call? Obviously, there's a call because he heard it.
Right, exactly. So that's his question. So first, the Zera Shimshon says, let me put aside the difference between what Hashem said and what the regular man says. Hashem saying something based on the Midrash of Shir Shirim. It says, let's take that aside. Hashem is a different kind of thing because he spoke to each person, and so every person heard the words of Hashem, heard the words that were being said, and therefore I have no.
He's saying there's still a question there. He just already has an answer.
He has a question. He says, I don't have a question on what Hashem says.
No, there's the question. We just have an answer.
Right, sorry, right.
Same thing.
Right, exactly. Okay. If you could do it that way. Because he says at the end, he says, about Yisrael him Devarim kasha. So he's saying is, yes, I have an answer for why Hashem repeats the word kol, but with Bnei Israel, I still have a question.
How come when a malach says then you need Devarim and you need kol, but when a human talks you don't need the kol when it's Devarim?
No, he's saying the opposite. He's saying that he's saying the kol. I have a question. I have a question no matter what. Like you said, they have a kol. No matter what it says kol, I have a question. Why do we need the word kol at all? But with Hashem / the Matan Torah, we can understand what's going on.
The sound was moving from place to place.
Moving to place to place, or a malach was giving it over. Whatever it is. He's almost saying is like, let's not deal with what Hashem or what a malach is doing. Let's put that aside because that's not
Why? With Daniel, Vayishma et kol dvarav. He heard the words of
the malach medaber.
So I'm asking, why did he kol dvarav? Vayishma dvarav. Why a malach's different than a human?
So there is an angel speaking, and as we said, speech from the heavenly realm is different. Meaning Hashem, but speech from a malach.
You have to. Okay, with the Matan Torah, you said the sound went to person. You needed the sound.
Right. So it's there. Kol amroim et kolot. Al derech zeh yitzurat pasuk shel Daniel v'ashmat kol dvarav. I heard his kol because Hashem is akilu malach was talking. So he's saying when it's a level. when it's Klapei Shmaya, he's saying is.
Why when a malach talks, you need the word
I'll tell you
call?
what. All even more. When a malach talks,
Yeah.
okay, a simple answer. Not that I understand what malachim do, but if a malach talks, we don't expect the malach to talk. Malach is meant to just do his thing, talk. But when you hear the voice of malach, that's something different, right? If I hear the voice, I see a malach in a dream. Do I hear what he's saying? No, I can see, I can maybe understand what he's saying, but I don't necessarily hear what he's saying. When Daniel says I hear the voice of malach, that means I really, mamash, hear what he's saying. Now, if you when we get to the rest of the Torah, you'll see the fascinating thing of what he's saying. You maybe understand the difference. Now he says, "Vayesh lomar shasham b'Iyov b'samuch kativ ki maleti milim." Let me just read the psukim correctly. Ki maleti milim hetzikitani ruach bitni. When we look at the psukim in Iyov, he says that right before what we just mentioned, the times where it says kol twice, Elihu says to Iyov, he says, "For I am filled with words, the spirit inside my belly oppresses me." Klomar, so he says here, Klomar, שיש לאדם איזו סיבה לדבר, איזה דבר, או מחמת כעס, טרדה, שנאה ואהבה, כיוצא בזה. אינו יכול לעצור בנפשו, למשול ברוחו לעכב דברו. Right? When a person is angry, what happens? Or when he's really happy, he's super excited, what happens? You just start ranting. You just throw it out. You can't hold it back. Right? When you have an emotion, right? I never hold back. Right? When I'm really angry or really excited, I just blabber. Right? Most people do that. They get their emotions get ahead of them, and what happens?
He's saying, "En lo yashim lev dvarim shelo."
Right. Tzarich she'edaber ba'al korcho. It's almost like he's being basically either the words are forced out of his mouth because he's so emotional. Whether it's good, like as he says here, b'nafsho right b'rucholak. He says tirda sina ahava. Either way, what happens is I'm so angry at you. I start calling you names that I don't want to really call. I don't really mean it to you. Right. Or the opposite. I'm really excited. I'm really happy. So I say things that are just so, just they come out. Right? וצריך שידבר בעל כורחו, וכשהוא מדבר מחמת אילו סיבות, כיוצר אין ראוי לשים לב לדברים שלו שהם בעל דעת, רק שאותה סיבה מכרחת אותו לדבר. So he's saying it's like he's almost like he's saying here
It's
is
like nothing. It's dumb.
right, exactly.
It's no dot. It's nothing. You don't have to.
Right, exactly. When a person is, we see this a lot when people are very sad or very angry. They just say things out of their nothing. Right? They just kind of say things, and you're just like, wait a minute, what did I just say? Right? Like you go back like a minute later when you've kind of cooled down, you're just like, did I really mean what I just said? Or like when we're really excited and we're really happy, right? We're so excited we just say anything, right? God forbid we see something like when we're, when someone's sick, right? God forbid, right? We make these promises to Hashem. We say, Hashem, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. 5 minutes later, when the person gets better, you're like, wait a minute, do I really have to do what I just said I'm going to do? Right? Because you're so emotional, right? You're going to do anything to make sure that it happens, right? So he says there, לכן אליהו אחר שהקדים כי מילאתי מילים רצה להודיע לאיוב אף על פי שאני מוכרח לדבר עמך עם כל זה האזינו לכל מילים. So he's saying, Elihu says that even though I explained to you that my mouth, my body, my stomach is filled with words, he says that even though I have to talk to you, you have to listen to the words of what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to the call. Listen to the voice that I'm saying. Meaning, if I just said, just listen to my words, not listen to the voice of my words, or the tone of my words, if maybe a better way to say it. If you just said, listen to my words, Iyov lo haya mashit libo beomro shadvarim haelu ba'im michmat tirda ve'en lashit levat lahem. So he's saying is Elihu.
The call is the kavanah.
Exactly. It's going to be. You're going to be like, well, that changes everything. But what he says here, he says is when a person says, when Elihu says to Iyov, he says, listen to the tone of my voice. Because if he just said, listen to my words, Iyov would just be like, all right, whatever. You don't really mean it, right? But he says, listen to what I'm trying to tell you, right? Listen to the tone. When I say something, right? What the words I emphasize, even when I speak. Right, the words that we emphasize, people say is, "Oh, he meant that," because I understood what he said. But if I just say words just like in a one, monotone, I know what you're really trying to say. Right? When I say specific words and I put tone into it, there's an extra meaning to it. Mishum hachi amar lekol mili, klamar eni medaber betirda, v'bli dat rak benefesh sulav v'dat miyushevet. He says that's why Elihu says lekol mili, to the tone of my voice. Eliyahu is saying to Eov, I'm not trying just to say stam words. I'm not bothered. I'm not like angry. I'm not happy. I'm telling you something. You have to really take it to heart, right? So that's what he's trying to say here. Right? What's the proof? He says is that the words, the tone that I take out, that Eliyahu was saying, is I mean it. Right? He says if I did Misha ino mechaben levarav ino mechaben afakol. Right? When I blurt something out because I'm angry, I'm happy. Right? I just say anything. So I'll scream, I'll yell, I'll throw things, whatever it is. But he's saying is, and therefore, the tone means nothing because I'm angry. People know you're angry. You're going to say whatever you say.
You can say שאינו מכוון לדבריו ואינו מכוון את הכל. When you can read some text.
Right.
Without any.
Right.
And it's just like.
Right. It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You can read the speech and without.
Right, without, right, exactly. When I read a speech, if you look yesterday, funny, I was just listening this morning to, right, if you listen to President Herzog's speech, if you want to hear it, if you listen to his speech yesterday.
Read Tehillim from now on, don't do it the way you do it.
Right, exactly.
Put some coal into it.
Right. By the way, if you look at this, by the way, that's the whole idea
When you read Tehillim now, you have to put the coal, you can't just...
By the way, that's one of the reasons that we have the whole idea of the truck, the whole idea of why we say things different ways, because it changes the meaning, right? And if you listen to, by the way, the good example of that is yesterday, this morning I was listening to President Herzog speak in front of Congress. And he pauses, and he says certain words, and then the things that he didn't want to put too much emphasis on, he kind of spoke quickly about
which things?
Like he wanted to talk about the political situation going on here in Israel. So he kind of he said some things, but the things that were he knew that first of all, he hit it towards the middle of the speech, not the beginning or the end. And the middle of the speech, he kind of you can hear in his voice, he doesn't put as much, he packages it nicely. So that's what he's saying. He's saying is when someone's angry, right? We say a lot of things when we're angry. We don't mean it. Our voice doesn't really. We just throw things out. But when we mean something, we say it with emphasis. We say it with a nice tone. And like what it says here, he says, what I know, when I talk with tone, and I talk with emphasis, and I talk with passion, then you know that I'm being serious. Right? Because if I wasn't being serious, I would just, blurt things out. Like what he says here. Now this is why, now we have to go back to what was the original problem. The original context of this situation was, the Zera Shimshon was asking, I don't understand, the Pasuk was talking about the Meraglim. So now we go back, and now look what he says. He says, look at the Pasuk says, Vayishma Hashem et kol divrechem. So he says, V'hachi nami b'masha dibur Yisrael neged HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'maaseh hameraglim ein lahashima. So he says here, so too, if that's the case, then what should we say is, then what would we say? He says here, regarding that, which Hashem said, but Bnei Yisrael spoke against Hashem, maaseh hameraglim, we should, a case that might be that we're not to be blamed. Why? They were scared. Exactly. They were scared of what they were. Hold on. We would think that we might think that they were all scared. They were nervous.
They were freaked out. So instead of saying, "Hey, we can't go,"
we're nervous.
We're going to be punished.
Right, but look what it says. Rak min hakol sheotziu divrehem haya noda ki bedat miyoshevet hayu medabrim.
They were totally sober.
Right.
They knew what they were saying.
And
now we have Tisha B'Av because they were sober.
That's what he says here. Look, it says, "V'shum hachik sheshama shem kol divrechem davka vayiksof vayishaval limor imira ish." He says, if I understood the tone, I understood what you guys were saying. I could easily say that it's not their fault because they were all bothered by what the Meraglim said, so they were kind of scared. Hashem, but Zera Shimshon says no. The word kol always emphasizes something greater than just the words that you mean. The tone of your voice means something. So Hashem, Moshe is pointing out to this beautiful. To me, this is just like an eye-opening thing. He says is that this is exactly what we're trying to say. What he's trying to say here is that Hashem understood what Bnei Yisrael's voice, the tone, right? You can look at the words, as he says, you can look at the words easily and say, it's not really their fault. But he says, no. He says, it was apparent to them that they were speaking with a composed mindset. In sinfulness, that's where he says, I heard the sounds of your words, meaning the tone of your voice, and therefore he says, I'm going to get angry. I'm going to I'm going to get angry and upset, and I'm going to swear that Hashem says, God forbid, there will be no chance that anyone of this generation will see this land. Now,
and that's why we're gonna fast Tisha B'av because it is
right. So
it is cold.
Yes. Now, if we go here, okay. So that is. So that's Torah 2. Now we're gonna go to, I don't know, do you all have?
Isaiah, you stopping in the middle?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop in the middle because again, he moves on to the whole where people express fear of death. It's a different thing about continuing about Hashem's voice. I just found it to be a little bit more. We can go through it, but I think it was a little bit more. It's like the topic changes a little bit. This one to me was more about the whole idea of our tone and our voice is a powerful statement. Now, if we go to, just go quickly. There's a short piece on Eicah.
It's in here?
I think it's in there. Is
Yeah,
Eicah? Yeah. Okay, so we go to Eicah. Let's find it here. He calls it Kinot. I think he calls it Kinot. But if we go to, let me see if I can find it. Just a short one. Yes. Okay. So here we go to. It's actually the end of the. I don't know if they have it. No, they don't have it here. So if we go to Eicah, or Kinot, I think he calls it, but Torah Bet. So Torah Bet is long. We're not going to go through the whole thing. But Torah Bet.
What amud is it?
Tav Tzadi.
Same.
Here is Tav Tzadi Bet. Tav Tzadi Gimel.
Yeah, Tav Tzadi Bet.
We're doing bet, right? Tav Tzadi.
Right, Tav Tzadi, but we're going to go towards the end. Just so. Right. Now, I'm gonna. This whole Torah is only because it's talking about only because we're in this Shabbat of Chazon, the Shabbat before Tisha B'av. So we should talk something about Tisha B'av. So he says here, if you go towards the end of the Torah, there's about 3 paragraphs before the end. It says "Va'kefel shebachotiv ke." You see it?
Yeah.
It's towards the end. It
Tav
says,
Tzadi Gimel.
yeah, Tav Tzadi Gimel, it says, Va'kefel shel bachotiv ke.
Okay.
So the question is, so it says, the question is that we have the words, why does it say bachotiv ke? Why do we have to repeat the words, right? We just say tivke balayla, bachotiv ke balayla, right? So he says, Perak Kaf Gimel de Shabbat, he says, Zema or inav shel adam sholech achar b'chi. Ab'chinu shchiva le barte techela v'avira. V'al kan eno rotzah keduv shebishvil ze nechtal milkot al korban habayit elo dimnatal lechya. So he's saying here. So what do we know about the famous pasuk? What does it say? What do we know about the famous pasuk? It's, the famous statement in the Gemara says is that the famous Gemara says that anyone who didn't see the rebuilding of the Mikdash is as if it was destroyed in our day. So he says here is, and so he says here, oh sorry, it says, so that's where I want to start. So he says here, it says in a different way, it says here, it says, so the Midrash in Eicah says, it says, and the pasuk says, right? Hashem's anger lasted one day. Had they done tshuva, it would have been over. Right? But basically they had gula. The light, the crying was to waken up the rachamim. Right? On the first day, you're sad. What are you angry at the first day? We're angry for what happened. So you can't ask for rachamim on the first day because it's too real, it's too raw. Right? When the person is angry, you don't try to calm them down and cool and get them to you never tell someone when they're angry, calm down. You don't do that because you can't. Right? Aval balayla, the night after, shekvar avar hayom v'charon az al izman habechia lo'orei rachamim k'dei shiyu nigalim. Odamru kol dor shel nivra beit hamikdash v'yamav ki v'nechrav lachem kafal v'amar b'chol shelo nivkeh So he's saying bachot tivkeh. He's saying is one is it has to be at night. Why does it have to be at night? Because during the day, it's too raw for us to be able to cry. At night, the night after it, right, and that's when halachically even implies halachically, right. No other fast. We have the law that we can't eat meat after the day of the fast is over or whatever it is, right? Only with Tisha B'Av because the night is still we're still sad, right? So he's saying is the sadness, we're still sad, and therefore we cry at night. The night afterwards is when we really are trying to, ask for rachamim and compassion. And then he says at the end, which is really a beautiful thing, he says is, why does it say bachot tivkeh? Once we cry because the Beit Mikdash was destroyed. But we really cry a second time. We're crying a second time because it wasn't built in our day. We're crying a second time. The tivkeh, the second one you will cry, is because every generation it wasn't built in our generation. We're crying for the fact that it wasn't built in our generation. So he's saying is it's not that only are we crying for the fact that it happened. We're crying for the fact that it didn't happen in our day.
So,
Go ahead.
so everyone, thank you for joining Mordecai Holtz. We have, please God, Rabbi Yisrael Zilberger going to join us later after Chatzos. He's the Hebrew-speaking author and the one who organised all the Svarim. We give a big thanks to him as well as the Sakal family, Charles Sakal. And big thanks to everyone who joins us tonight in person. We have a crew of people, thank God. Even though it's the 3 weeks, a difficult time without Charles here. And we'll send our love and see him soon. Thank you, everyone. Blessed week and a beautiful Shabbos.
No, he writes very slow.
Yeah.
Takes his time, he writes.
Yeah.
I could do this stuff, but it'll take me all day to do one mezuzah.
Yeah, he takes very slow. Okay. Okay. Anyway, shkach. I'm sorry that we got it short. I usually go a little longer, but
You're in a rush.
no, I'm not in a rush. Not for good. No, not for good. It was yeah. There were short pieces, so I figured we'd end a little early. I hope to be back for next week, even though after the fast we'll do a short one, maybe just because of
What? Thursday? The fast is Thursday.
Yeah.
Tisha B'Av.
yeah.
So Motzi Tisha B'Av is still going to do this?
We'll do a short. We'll do it. Maybe we won't start at 9:30. We'll start
Maybe a bit later. Yeah, makes sense.
Just see how I'm feeling after
Yeah,
the fast.
yeah.
Normally knocked out.
Some years I'm great and I can go forever, and some years I'm just like.
Kind
You get that boost after